If we look at institutional investor adoption, the big question that everyone is watching is like, why crypto and why now?
With the introduction of ETF, right, this is a pivotal moment for crypto. It sends the market a very important signal. All of these institutional investors have the fiduciary duty to at least take a proper look at this asset class.
What does this mean for retail investors that are watching the market?
Given the increased interest, that usually also means that more valid and really meaningful project will continue to build. I personally think this is probably the most unprecedented opportunity ever.
Welcome back to the Binance Studios. In this conversation, we'll be taking a look at the institutional interest of crypto and crypto adoption in 2025 and beyond. And joining me for some exclusive insights and much more besides, I have Catherine Chen, Head of VIP and Institutional at Binance. Catherine, thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure to have you here. Welcome to the Binance Studios.
It's very nice here. My first time.
I like that you appreciate the space. Now, we have a lot to unpack today, and I think a great starting point is to look a little bit at your career journey, because I've had a look at your CV, extremely insightful. You've got 15 years of investment banking experience from the likes of Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, and much more. But what attracted you to crypto in the first place, and what was your your eureka moment into this industry?
So yes, thank you. You have actually helped me summarize my professional background. But to add a little bit, my expertise was in structured derivative solutions. So in that product line, we are actually very much drawn to the most innovative financial innovation and solutions in the industry. So that was something that I have always taken a very strong interest in. Professionally, even though I work at a bank, I have always been a business builder, and that's what I feel most passionate about. So I decided to make the move, transition over to crypto around end of 2020, after, again, 15 years career in finance, and where I decided that, in banking, people are probably not building as fast as the other industry because, there are just a lot more different consideration. And that's when I decided, look, I want to be part of the next wave of financial innovation and build a parallel financial system. And that's when I decided it's time for me to make the move.
And we're so glad that you did.
Yes, I'm very, very glad as well. It's been 3.5 years, but, never looking back.
And I had a similar journey from you. I was a reporter working for a Swiss bank that moved in 2017 over to crypto. And people looked at me like, are you really sure you want to make the move into crypto? Which leads us on to misconceptions. And there was misconceptions then, and there certainly, I'm sure, still is now. When you are talking to the institutional clients that you are working with, are there still misconceptions? And what are some of the myths that you debunk on a day-to-day basis?
One of the biggest one that I will always like to mention, and this remain a very big misconception, is sometimes people still refer to crypto as this asset class whereby there are plenty of illicit or illegal activity. But that is absolutely not true. According to one of the latest research insight, it very, very clearly shows that more than 99% of all the criminal and money laundering activity, in fact, happen through traditional financial system as opposed to crypto. And to draw a comparison in that, in crypto in 2023 to 24, this number in 2020 was 0.4% of the overall transaction that happened in crypto. And this number actually went down further in 2024 to less than 0.4%. And this is something that I will always love to clarify and just bring upfront to a lot of the people that seem to, jump to the conclusion that because of certain misconception, they assume that this asset class is full of criminal activity or money laundering activity. It absolutely is not.
Absolutely. And actually, this is also one of my favorite use cases, is to show and to verify on-chain the transactions. And when you show that to people from traditional banking, they're always amazed that everything is so transparent.
Exactly.
And distributed as the technology.
Exactly. And frankly, it's much easier to track and trace all the activity. Everything is on-chain, and there is much more clarity, if anything, in crypto versus TradFi means of money transmittance.
So you mentioned you've been in Binance for over 3 years now. I feel like 2025, and I'd love to get your take, has been a shift in appetite for institutional investors, and that probably started from last year. the big question that everyone is watching is like, why crypto and why now from an institutional standpoint?
So to be honest, I think the institutional interest has always been like slowly bubbling, and depending on the type of institutional investor, you can almost say that they've been observing and watching on the sideline. And a lot of people are on the fence. Frankly, some of them probably still are. Now, obviously, one of the biggest events last year was the introduction of ETF. And I've said this time and again, with the introduction of ETF, right, this is a pivotal moment for crypto. The volume is not going to explode overnight. And we are also not going to see overnight tons of institutional investors suddenly switching side. Nonetheless, it sends the market a very important signal. For instance, for the traditional institutional investor, whether it's sovereign or pension, right now, at the very minimum, all of these institutional investors has a fiduciary duty to at least take a proper look at this asset class. And thanks to the introduction of ETF, this asset class has also been given the much needed legitimacy, right? So right now we have a lot more institutional investor, post the event of the introduction of ETF, people started looking at it. And over time, in fact, I think not long ago in January, Financial Times also reported that a number of institutional investors, pension, the suffering, started to invest in making a reasonable amount of allocation into the crypto ETF. And I predict that this is just the beginning of it. More and more people will follow, whether from an asset allocation point of view or a diversification point of view. It's something that people can no longer neglect and ignore.
And you said there as well, kind of institutional interest was always kind of bubbling away in the background. And I know reporting on crypto, it was always, when are the big players going to come in? When are the institutions going to fully come in? For people that are watching, that are listening to this conversation, how would you define an institutional investor? Let's just bring it back a little bit, or like a big player in the space. Can you give an idea of just how big that slice of the pie per se, how big it is?
Yeah, no, of course. So to be honest, even within the category of institutional investor, you have all different type of institutional investors in the mix, right? So, and one of the things that I often share is, to be honest, a lot of institutional investors are already here. Now, in the traditional sense, a lot of people, when they think about institutional investor, they probably think about, the traditional real money guys, the loan only, the sovereign, the pension. Now, I would say they are probably one of the most important in the overall institutional investor pyramid because they represent the biggest base. And generally speaking, they probably also are the more conservative and therefore not in the very forefront of investing into, I guess, a more innovative or novel asset class. However, there are also others, right? The like of hedge fund, the like of prop, essentially people who are just managing, institutional investor managing a portfolio of own investors' money. So there are really a whole range of institutional investors in the mix.
And what kind of trends are interesting for them? Because obviously, kind of, if you're looking to kickstart your investment journey, you'll probably look on CoinMarketCap and see kind of Binance is leading the front. Is that the same for institutions? Is appetite slightly different to retail? What kind of things do you get asked about?
So again, it will go back to the type of institutional investors. And frankly, right now in the space, thanks to, all the, much more regulatory clarity, we now have a lot of different institutional players as well, right? Now, when it comes to institutional investor, again, depending on their profile, if it's the like of a, pensions or an annuation fund, that type of institutional investor, they generally would be a bit more cautious and conservative. For a lot of them, they were already in the industry, but instead of directly investing into crypto, they have to invest into the type of investment wrapper that they're more used to. And that's why for a lot of them, they probably invested in VC fund, right? Whereby those VC fund then investing into different crypto projects. Right now, there's ETF. So if they would like to directly invest in crypto, instead of directly putting money into crypto, they will probably put it into ETF, which is a wrapper that they're very used to. Right now, that is just, again, the like of pension and suffering. There are a lot of other different institutional players now in the ecosystem, and they're doing all kind of different stuff, right? And that's how, right now you're also seeing much more money market fund or, a real world asset. This is where a lot of the institutional players are now taking part in the industry, which we are very optimistic, and I believe that will help the industry grow massively.
So the industry's growing, it's moving forward. We've got, as you mentioned, the ETFs has been a great open door for a wrapper in which crypto appetite can kind of continue and move forward. If we look at the pace in which we're seeing institutional investor adoption, what kind of pace are we at currently? You've mentioned it's growing. Are you expecting there to be an acceleration? Obviously, we have seen 2025, the inauguration of Donald Trump. We're seeing things move into a slightly more pro-crypto landscape across the board. Are you expecting things to move forward at a steady pace?
So I think things will move forward, but depending on the profile and type of institutional investor, you will see a different a range of different speed. Again, for the like of pension and suffering, they are probably going to be cautious, but honestly started to really take a deeper look at this asset class. Now, for the more actively trading type of institutional investors who tend to be managing money either on behalf of a small group of investor or just, a portfolio of clients, those are the category that we're seeing an acceleration in terms of activities.
So if we take a look at the direction in which things are moving and the pace in which you said that institutional adoption is happening and the conversations that you're having as well, what does this mean for people that are watching, kind of our regular people like me and you, retail investors that are watching the market? What does this shift in institutional adoption, what does it mean for them?
So a few different aspects. So first of all, with the increased institutional interest, it always helps because again, that generally means that more legitimacy in the asset class, and hopefully over time, the overall market capitalization of this industry will grow as well. And given the increased institutional interest, that usually also means that more valid and really meaningful project will continue to build, and that would just build on one another and really help with the overall industry growth.
So now if we look ahead to the industry landscape at large and possibly some of the adoption hurdles or obstacles that could be in the way and maybe things that we have to navigate collectively as an industry, if we look at kind of regulatory challenges could be considered one, even something as simple as education, security concerns, these are probably conversations that you have quite often with your institutional clients. How do you navigate some of these challenges?
I think first of all, yes, regulatory clarity is the single most important thing, which is why I think right now the overall market amongst the institutional investor that we speak to, there is definitely much more optimism that is going on. And hopefully, we are seeing pockets of countries in the world, and hopefully, with the new administration in the US, there will be even more clarity. And I think all the institutional investors globally, and frankly, governments globally, are also looking at one another and hopefully in the ensuing, months and year, and form much more and much clearer regulatory path to it. So I think this is number one, the most important thing that potentially sometimes are also slowing down certain institutional investor because again, for them to really be able to make that brave first step, this is absolutely crucial. They will need regulatory clarity, and sometimes it's about whether they're even able. Sometimes it's about the classification of crypto as an asset class. Sometimes it's about whether in the specific category of institutional investor, whether it's pension, sovereign, or sometimes insurance company, what they can and cannot invest in terms of the type of asset class is all clearly stipulated in the regulation. And I believe those all will happen over time, but it's still happening gradually. And that, I think, remain one of the biggest hurdle for, I guess, mass scale institutional adoption. Other than that, look, oftentimes it really is about education. I think it's the same for both retail and institutional investor. It's just slightly different. But I think this is why, we take it upon ourselves as well to really be having a lot of this conversation with institutional investor or, retail client alike to answer any of their questions and doubt about the asset class. And hopefully, people spread and share those knowledges.
Absolutely. And that's why conversations like this are so great and a chance for me to pick your brains and ask some questions. So thank you so much for your insights. We're now going to dive into our rapid fire question round. So the condition is you've got to answer first thing that comes to mind as fast as possible, and we've got to keep the answers short. So it's a bit of a challenge, but I'm going to start off by asking you, what has been your most memorable industry conference that you've attended and why?
It's a small one. I shall not name it, but it's in Switzerland. I go to conference for the people and I love the people there.
Nice. And you get to see the snow as well.
Yes, it's lovely.
If you could sum up the VIP institutional approach to crypto in one word, what would it be?
Build.
Build. Nice. Okay. The most unique encounter of someone asking you about crypto.
This is a person who doesn't know crypto at all.
Yeah. Have there been someone, for example, like if you've gone to a new country and you're wearing Binance t-shirt, maybe someone's asked you or...
No, it's generally people who I met for the first time and asked me about what I do. And then I said, I work for Binance, and they would like, what is Binance? And then, at this point, I felt that one of the funniest conversations is what is crypto? Hopefully things would change.
I always find I get asked about Binance when I'm at the airport because I have the suitcase. And people say, oh, you're in crypto. And I'm like, yeah, I'm in crypto. Or people will be like, we've seen you on the crypto YouTube channel. So I get to share the word of crypto. What is the first application on your phone that you open each morning?
It's our work messenger.
Hardworking. Binanceans are hardcore.
#hardcore.
Where do you go for your crypto news?
X.
Me too. What is one piece of advice that you'd give to someone that's starting out their crypto journey?
Be committed, build, live the dream.
Nice. I love that. If you could describe the culture of your team in one sentence, what would it be?
Extreme hardcore yields fruitful outcome.
Nice. They'll love that. If you weren't working in crypto, what do you think you'd be doing today?
I can't think of a different life.
Fully committed. This is the life. What is the best piece of career advice that you've received?
Oh, when I was deciding to move to crypto, I was having second thought whether it was that moment or whether I should wait a little. And somebody very wise told me, if you don't do it now, the market would take off without you. And I'm forever grateful.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah. Thank you for the person who said it to me, if you're watching this.
And finally, is there a book or podcast that has really inspired you that you would recommend people to go and read, listen to, that's helped you along your journey?
It's not really crypto related, but I guess in general, I've always been quite interested in entrepreneurship, and Acquired is one of my favorite podcasts.
Fantastic. Well, Catherine, thank you so much for sharing some insight. It has been great. There's so much alpha here to unpack. So I hope that everyone watching found it useful. And thank you for the time today.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me. Thank you.
And thank you guys so much for watching. Really enjoyed it. And make sure to subscribe if you haven't already.